China's Ministry of Commerce has formally launched two major trade investigations targeting the United States, a development that comes just a day ahead of a high-stakes round of U.S. China trade negotiations scheduled to take place in Spain. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. The dual probes underscore the intensifying tensions between the world's two largest economies, highlighting the central role of technology and high-value trade sectors in the ongoing competition. The first investigation centers on allegations that U.S. policies have discriminated against Chinese companies in the semiconductor industry. The second seeks to examine potential dumping of U.S. analog chips, widely used in devices ranging from hearing aids to Wi-Fi routers and industrial temperature sensors, into the Chinese market. The Ministry of Commerce's statement emphasized that the United States has, in recent years, imposed a series of trade restrictions, sanctions, and regulatory measures specifically targeting China's semiconductor sector. These include export controls, trade discrimination investigations, and placement of Chinese entities on restricted trade lists. From Beijing's perspective, these measures are not only protectionist, but are also intended to suppress the development of China's high-tech industries, particularly in critical fields such as advanced computing, artificial intelligence, and chip manufacturing. In a pointed statement, the ministry questioned Washington's motives, asking, "What is the U.S.'s intention in imposing sanctions on Chinese companies at this time?" It urged the U.S. government to immediately reverse these policies and cease what it described as unwarranted suppression of Chinese companies. The statement further warned that China would take all necessary measures to safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of its domestic firms. This announcement follows a significant move by the U.S. Commerce Department on Friday, which added 32 entities to its restricted trade list, 23 of them Chinese firms. Among these were two companies accused of attempting to acquire sensitive chip-making equipment for SMIC, China's largest semiconductor manufacturer. These actions reflect a broader U.S. strategy to maintain technological leadership and prevent Chinese companies from obtaining advanced production capabilities that could challenge U.S. dominance in semiconductors, a sector that underpins both economic competitiveness and national security. The upcoming Spain negotiations mark the fourth in-person meeting between the two economic powers this year, part of ongoing efforts to preserve a delicate trade truce. Previous agreements had reduced retaliatory tariffs on a wide range of goods and ensured the continued export of Chinese rare earth minerals to the United States. Rare earth elements are essential for a variety of modern technologies, including consumer electronics, electric vehicles, defense systems, and renewable energy technologies, making them a critical point of leverage in the trade relationship. Prior rounds of negotiations in Geneva, London, and Stockholm resulted in a temporary extension of tariff pauses, with former President Donald Trump approving the continuation of the moratorium until November 10. These discussions also highlighted the broader challenges of balancing trade, technology, and security concerns while avoiding escalation into a full-scale trade war. In tandem with trade and technology measures, Chinese state media have stressed the country's commitment to data privacy and cybersecurity. The official People's Daily published an article on Saturday affirming that China attaches great importance to data privacy and security, and has never, and will never, require companies or individuals to provide foreign-located data to the Chinese government in violation of local laws. The article reiterated that if the United States continues to undermine Chinese companies' legitimate business interests, China will take all necessary measures to defend both national interests and the rights of its domestic firms. Analysts observe that the timing of China's investigations is deliberate and strategically significant. By initiating anti-discrimination and anti-dumping probes immediately before the Spain talks, Beijing signals a dual message. It is willing to defend its domestic companies and technological ambitions vigorously, but it is also seeking leverage in ongoing negotiations. This move reflects a broader trend in which both countries increasingly use economic and trade measures as instruments of geopolitical influence. The semiconductor industry, at the heart of these disputes, has become a critical arena of global competition. Semiconductors are the backbone of modern technology, powering everything from smartphones and laptops to advanced military systems and industrial automation. Control over chip manufacturing and supply chains has therefore become a strategic priority for both nations. China has invested heavily in developing a domestic semiconductor ecosystem, aiming to reduce reliance on foreign suppliers and establish itself as a global leader in high-end chip technology. Conversely, the United States has sought to curb China's progress through targeted export controls, investment screening mechanisms, and inclusion of Chinese firms on entity lists that limit access to U.S. technology. These tensions are not purely economic but carry significant political and strategic dimensions. For the United States, restricting Chinese access to advanced semiconductor technologies is framed as a matter of national security and technological leadership. For China, resisting such measures is portrayed as a defense of national sovereignty and an effort to nurture domestic innovation. The interplay between these objectives creates a high-stakes environment in which trade negotiations, technological competition, and geopolitical strategy are deeply intertwined. The broader implications of these developments extend far beyond the bilateral U.S. China relationship. Semiconductor supply chains are highly interconnected and global in scope. Disruptions or shifts in trade policy between the two superpowers could have cascading effects on industries worldwide, including consumer electronics, automotive manufacturing, telecommunications, defense, and renewable energy. Companies across Asia, Europe, and the Americas are closely monitoring the situation, aware that policy changes in the U.S. or China could reshape production, investment, and innovation strategies for years to come. The issue of dumping of analog chips also underscores the complexity of trade disputes in the technology sector. Dumping allegations often involve detailed examinations of pricing practices, production costs, and competitive dynamics. Should China find that U.S. analog chips have been dumped in its market at unfairly low prices, it could impose tariffs or other trade remedies. Such actions would further escalate tensions but also signal China's commitment to defending its domestic industry. In addition to tariffs and trade restrictions, both nations are competing to secure talent, intellectual property, and strategic technology investments. Chinese firms are actively seeking to acquire capabilities in artificial intelligence, robotics, and advanced semiconductor manufacturing, while the U.S. is intensifying scrutiny of Chinese investments in sensitive sectors. The combination of economic, technological, and regulatory measures illustrates the multifaceted nature of the competition and highlights why trade talks alone may not fully resolve underlying tensions. Looking ahead, the Spain talks will serve as a critical litmus test for the trade relationship. Observers expect the discussions to focus not only on tariff policies and market access but also on technology transfer, intellectual property protections, and industrial policy. The outcome could determine whether the existing trade truce is maintained, extended, or unraveled, with significant consequences for businesses, governments, and global supply chains. In conclusion, China's initiation of anti-discrimination and anti-dumping investigations represents a calculated escalation in the ongoing economic and technological rivalry with the United States. By formally challenging U.S. policies in the semiconductor sector and scrutinizing pricing practices, China is asserting its sovereignty, defending domestic companies, and preparing to negotiate from a position of strength. The upcoming Spain negotiations will test whether these two global powers can balance their economic interests with broader strategic goals. The stakes are high, not only for U.S. and Chinese firms but for the global technology landscape and international economic stability. As both nations navigate this complex, high-stakes environment, the world watches closely to see whether cooperation, confrontation, or compromise will define the next chapter of U.S.-China trade relations.